back to Ugly Truck. If you followed us for a while, you might have seen this truck before. This is my 1970 Chevy C10. Anytime we've talked about it, we've talked about the LS swap. So just to give you a little bit of backstory on this truck, when we bought it, it had the original 307 in it, 3 on the tree, 373 gears in the rear end. Over the course of the years, we swapped in a 350 with the 3 on the tree, ended up swapping in 308 rear gears, and then we ended up getting a smoking deal on a 4.8 LS and a 4L60E. So we went ahead and did the LS swap, and long story short, head gaskets are important. So it now has a 5.3, which has been super fun, but the rest of the truck is basically 1970. So when I talk about this truck and I tell people that it's LS swap, the first question is always, ooh, is it fast? And I always tell people it's as fast as you want to push the rest of the truck. It will go as fast as 1970 will allow. So that's what we're doing today. There's some things on this truck. There's a lot of things on this truck that need some attention. Most of them are stupid little minor things that I'm not really worried about, but the brakes have been an issue lately, and at some point pre-LS swap, we did upgrade the front brakes a little bit. It came with 4-wheel plain old drum brakes, so we did upgrade to power brakes. We put front spindles off of a 72 C10 and front, hubs and rotors and calipers, all that jazz. So it does have front disc brakes. They are 1972 front disc brakes, which are fine for what I use this truck for. It's just a daily driver. I'm not taking this thing to the track. I'm not taking it to the strip. It's just my daily driver. So these brakes have been great. However, we went ahead and just machined the used rotors and slapped some new pads on it and went with it. You might as well get the use out of it if you can. But we did all that knowing that someday we would have to come back and replace the rotors, put new pads on it, new bearings, blah, blah, blah. And today is that day. So basically, this is just a basic brake job on a 72 C10, so probably nothing you've never seen before. I'm not swapping anything today, sorry, but thought maybe somebody might learn something. Thought maybe you guys want to hang out with me while I do a brake job. It's a great time. And if you just pull against the pistons on the caliper a little bit, make some space and wiggle it out. These rotors have a big lip on the outside. Like I said, they were used, so we did machine them, but that was one set of brake pads ago. So let me grab a pry bar. And I'm not worried about these rotors, obviously, not worried about the pads, but you don't want to pry against the piston on the caliper, because then you get to go buy a new caliper, and I don't like that. O'Reilly's likes that when you break the piston. Are you gonna stay there or not? Okay. All right. So the rotors actually don't look that bad. They didn't wear too bad. There's a couple little grooves in there. This one is supposed to be there, but they are too thin, and I don't know if you can see kind of the color. There's a band right through here that is kind of dark, and it's sort of blue colored. That's from getting hot, and basically when you machine a rotor, you take material off, and the less material you have, the less heat dissipation you have. So when you're driving down the road in this thing and you hit the brakes, you can feel it wobble a little bit, feel the brakes pulsate, and that's because it's too thin and now it's shaped like a Pringle. So, got this caliper off. I'm gonna jump over and do the other one because once I crack open these dust caps, things are gonna get greasy, and I only wanna do greasy once. So, hi Muffin. Are you here to help? Same thing over here. Whatever this big 3/8 hex is what these are. Ugh. And yes, I am using the longest ratchet I own. Jerry likes to give me a hard time because I use the wrong tools. But I'm using this one because I like it. Do I have another one that would work better? Probably. Am I gonna use it? Nope. Again, don't pry on the piston. Gonna have a bad time. So this side's about the same. You can maybe see that blue ring a little bit better on this side. Like I said, that's just where it's been hot. So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and get these dust caps off and get my axle nuts off, or my spindle nuts in this case, I guess, and we can get these rotors off of here. So this is where it gets gross. Doink. All right. All right. Okay, so spindle nut, got a washer behind that spindle nut, don't lose that, those are important. You don't have another one laying around, I checked. Okay, so there's our little outer bearing. So there you go. Let's go do the same thing on the other side. Spindle nut, washer. Okay, there we go. So at this point, I'm gonna clean up all of my old grease and get everything nice and clean, ready to go back together. So I will meet you back here with new parts. Okay, so got my spindles clean. Just took a rag to them and got rid of all the old grease and took some brake clean and just wiped it off. Doesn't have to be like surgically clean, but you don't want any of that old grease on there when you go to put your new bearings on there. And I have some new inner and outer bearings, got new wheel seals, and I picked up a brake kit from O'Reilly for a 72 C10, which includes such fun goodies as new rotors and new pads. And these rotors, they actually have the races already in there for you. So that saves you a step. And this whole kit with the rotors and the pads at O'Reilly was 120 bucks. So that's pretty hard to beat. Like I've said, this truck is my daily driver. It's a bone stock 5.3 bone stock 1970, everything else. So it is not winning any races. I have no plans to win any races anytime soon. So a brake kit for a stock 72 Chevy is more than plenty for me. So at this point, we're ready to go ahead and pack our new bearings and slap everything together. So let's do it. All right, so we got our shiny new bearings, and we actually don't have a bearing packer other than these. Jerry hates packing bearings, but I kind of like it. There's like, it's kind of zen, you know? You just hang out and pack some bearings. And you don't want to just smear it. You actually want to force it up through, in between, and fill all those little gaps. So you can see it's starting to poke out around right there, and I'm just going to do that all the way around. Alright, so got my bearings packed, ready to throw some things together, and I'm just going to give the race here a little coat of grease. Drop my bearing in. Doink. So set my new seal on there. I found a piece of 2.5-inch tubing, and it's just the right size to get that started there. If you get it started straight, it taps in pretty evenly. You just want to make sure that edge around the outside, that it all feels even. You can kind of hear it when it taps down tight. So, and then we're going to take another little blob of grease and get that down in there. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this on the truck and get some room on my cart. Before I go too crazy getting everything back together, I need to go ahead and wash my washer and get all that old grease off of that and the nut. Give it some brake clean. Good wipe. And one little trick that Jerry showed me is if you go ahead and just put the nut on a couple threads, you can slip the seal and the inner race are big enough to go over it, and that just keeps it from falling off, because you're gonna have to do a couple things one-handed here. So all right, so inner seal, inner bearing, slip up over that nut. Be kind of careful, but then it just sits there like that, and then that nut will keep it from falling all the way off. So at this point, I have both hands, and I'm going to reach in and give that outer race now a little bit of grease. Another little blob in there for that bearing. And okay, there's that. All right, so there's my outer bearing and this washer. You can tell it's got a little nub right there, a little keyway, or a little key. It goes into the keyway on the spindle. Hold it in place. Take our nut, and I'm just gonna finger tight, and we'll go throw the other side together. Okay. And there is such thing as too much grease. I know you're surprised. That ugly truck experience would tell you that it is possible to over lubricate, but it is. So. There we go. All right. Okay, so at this point we are ready to talk about bearing preload, which is just a fancy word for how tight do you make this nut. And the answer is not too tight, not too loose. So if you go too tight, those bearings are going to overheat. We've been talking this whole time about heat and heat dissipation. I feel like I'm just talking to you and you're not listening to me. Are you listening? So basically, you go too tight, you're going to burn your bearings up. If you go too loose, your wheel's going to flop around, but that's better than burning your bearings up. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your nut and go till it stops. You don't want to force it, but there's a noticeable stop right there, and you're going to come back about 1/8 of a turn. So about right there. And we're going to take our cotter key and see if we can find a hole. There's not a hole there. So instead of going forward to get to the next hole, we're going to play it safe and go backwards. Right there. There we go. Okay. So, there we go. Lots of help today. Okay. Doink. Okay. There we go. Tap, 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 tap. There we go. Okay. Ooh. Listen to those nice smooth bearings. Yes. And we'll do the same thing over here. Not too tight, not too loose. Whoop. Okay, so there we stopped. About 1/8 of a turn. Doink. Doink. Okay. Okay. So, greasy stuff is done. Yay. All right. Got my old pad out of there. Okay. I am going to reuse the hardware that was on my original pads, so make sure you hang on to that. Make sure you got a new one, because you're going to need it. So at this point, I need to push my piston back into my caliper. So you can do this with a C-clamp. You can use your giant, freakishly large channel locks. You can use your hands if you're really super strong. And then this little pin, this little guide, it's got a little O-ring in there. These calipers are pretty new, so I know my little O-ring in there is okay. I'm gonna take my little guide and clean it up a little bit, and I'm going to clean up my pins while I'm at it and grease those up. And you can do this with a piece of emery cloth or a little piece of sandpaper. I'm going to use my little die grinder, whizzy wheel, whatever you want to call it. And same thing to the pin. All right. So there we go. 2 shiny clean guides, 2 shiny clean pins. Also want to make sure that these surfaces are clean. And again, I'm gonna reuse the hardware that I had and save my hardware with these pads for another day. Maybe Frankenstein. Hint, hint. Stick around for that video. And on the outside pad is where it gets a little weird. So it has these tabs here, and this big one here, and that is what actually grips to the caliper. So this one actually fits pretty good, but some of them you gotta really knock them tight. But this side is going together pretty good. Okay, I'm just gonna put a little bit of brake caliper grease on my little guide pins, my little guides for my guide pins, and slip those back into their hole. Should have done that before I put that in. There we go. Just pop that back in there. Here we go. Ta-da. Pins. A little dab of grease while I'm at it. Get those ready. Now we can slide this caliper back over the rotor. So you want to pay attention and not twist your brake hose. And get it back lined up. There we go. Okay. Get the pin going through here. Okay. Get them started. They'll line themselves up with the other side here. Okay. So there you go. Poof, it's brakes. So let's go to the other side, slap some wheels on it, and we could be all done. Awesome.
Using my tiny baby pliers. Yoink.
Come on.
Come on.
Here we go. All right. Make them pretty. Okay. Learn my lesson on the other side. I'm gonna put my pins or my guides in first, before I put the brake pads in. There we go. Okay. You have to excuse the noise. We're working on Fords today. Push my caliper back in. My piston back into the caliper. Okay. There we go. Inner pad. Over. That direction. So on my other side, my outer pad fit pretty tight. This side does have a little bit of play. It's pretty close, but I don't want that pad rattling around in there. So I'm going to take, and I'm just going to tap these little tabs right here down just a little bit, just to tighten them up a little. Just find something solid to tap on. doesn't take a lot, so I don't want to do it too much and end up having to try to bend them back the other way. So there we go, that's much better. Again, watch your brake hose, make sure you don't get it all twisted up. There we go. Okay. There we go. Slide the pins in. Okay. And I didn't mention it, and I don't think I showed it on camera, but I did wipe these rotors off before I slap pads on them. They have a greasy film on them to keep them from rusting while they get them to you, while they're sitting in a warehouse. So I'm sure you know the drill, but a little bit of brake clean and a rag, wipe them off, good to go. So there we go, some shiny new brakes for my not so shiny truck. It's important to remember that ugly trucks need love too. And we got brand new wheel studs. So I'm gonna slap some anti-seize, anti-sneeze. Very nice. So in the process of replacing these brakes, I figured out that, I don't know if you can see it, but this tie rod has a pretty good amount of play in it. And it's pretty bouncy and my tires are chopped up. So looks like I need outer tie rod and some shocks. So stay tuned for part 2. So there you go. Kind of just a boring old brake job, but it's important stuff. Going fast is important. Brakes are importanter, okay? At this point, I am ready to take this thing for a cruise. I want to make sure that my bearing preload is okay and all my brake pads, everything gets seated nice. Make sure I got everything back together the right way. So I'm going to do that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Maybe it helped you out, maybe you learned something, maybe it inspired you to go throw some brakes on your old truck. This is definitely something that I've been putting off for a long time, so I'm glad to have it done. And I hope it's a lesson for you that when you hear LS Swap C10, it doesn't have to be a $100,000 truck, and it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg to keep it on the road. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments. If I did something wrong and you want to yell at me, let me know in the comments. We really appreciate you guys watching, and we will catch you next time. So this is too cool not to point out. I just put brakes on my olive green and yellow 1970 C10. And on the other side of the shop, Jerry is working on an olive green and yellow 1970 F100. How cool is that?